Have you ever looked at the back of a can of kidney beans, something you bought specifically because it seemed healthy, simple, and cheap, and thought, wait, why does this need sugar and 3 different types of processed starch just to sit there and be a bean? If you haven't, you absolutely should, and if you have, then congratulations, you're already ahead of the game. Because today we are tearing apart the industrial canned bean complex, and it is going to get messy. We're not talking about your grandmother's chili here. We're talking about massive food conglomerates turning a 3-ingredient staple into an ultra-processed chemical dump designed purely for convenience and cost-cutting, and then selling it back to you with wholesome marketing that makes you feel good about putting it in your shopping cart. It's time to wake up and smell the, well, sodium. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which household name brands, stuff you probably have in your pantry right this second, are loading their cans with chemical additives that are literally banned from whole food shelves. We'll show you lab results, consumer reviews, and actual data that reveal why a 50-cent can of beans might be the most deceptive product in the entire supermarket. We're going to break down the specific industrial shortcuts like calcium chloride, disodium EDTA, and why your beans might actually contain more sugar per serving than some candy bars. And because we aren't here just to ruin your chili night, I'm also going to reveal the 4 brands that are actually doing it right. The stuff that's truly just beans, water, and maybe a little salt, backed by organic certifications and transparent sourcing you can trust. Trust me, the most shocking betrayal from one of America's most trusted, folksy brands is waiting near the end, and you are not going to believe the level of chemistry they've hidden behind their family-owned narrative before we start naming names. Let's understand how a quality bean product is even made. In an ideal world, a can of beans needs 3 simple ingredients: organic beans, purified water, and sea salt. It's that simple. Anything more than that is almost always a manufacturing shortcut. Think of a high-end car. It doesn't need to be propped up with cheap plastic parts to perform. A quality bean, properly soaked and slow-cooked, has its own structure and flavor. It's delicious on its own. But the bean industry has different priorities, mainly shelf stability and mass production. They don't have time for overnight soaking or traditional methods. They need to turn thousands of tons of beans into uniform, durable products that can travel thousands of miles and last for years on a store shelf without turning to mush. And that's where the deception begins. Think of it like mass-produced white bread versus a sourdough loaf from a local bakery. One is optimized for logistics and cost, the other for nutrition and flavor. The first industrial trick is chemical firming agents, like calcium chloride. This compound keeps the bean skin artificially intact and rigid. It's essentially the industry saying, we cooked this way too fast, so now we have to add a hard coating to prevent it from dissolving. This creates a consistent look, sure, but it also means you're eating an industrial additive that has absolutely no nutritional or culinary purpose. Next, you have color stabilizers, most notably disodium EDTA. This is a synthetic preservative that prevents beans from discoloring in the can. That sounds fine, right? Until you realize it's there entirely for cosmetic reasons so that the product looks fresh for 5 years. Whole Foods Market, a store with actual standards, specifically lists disodium EDTA as an unacceptable ingredient in food. When a major grocery chain, known for its strict ingredient sourcing, refuses to sell a product because of a specific chemical, that's a signal every single one of us should pay attention to. Finally, we have the flavor optimization block, which is just a fancy term for sugar, dextrose, modified cornstarch, and vague natural flavors. These are added to mask the off flavors that chemical processing leaves behind, creating a cycle where one unnecessary additive requires another to cover its tracks. Canned beans are supposed to be a savory food. High fructose corn syrup has no reason to be there. But the biggest revelation, the one that ties this entire systemic deception together, is the role of sodium, which some brands use at truly alarming levels. They aren't seasoning the food. They are using it as a super preservative and flavor crutch, turning a healthy staple into a potential sodium bomb, especially in plain beans where people assume they can control the seasoning. This entire system is built to serve the producer, not you, and it's time we called it out. So let's start stripping away the wholesome marketing facades and look at what's actually inside the cans lining your local grocery aisles. First up on our list of shame is Hanover red kidney beans. You've probably seen these sitting on the shelves of regional East Coast chains like Wegmans or Giant, marketed as a dependable, budget-friendly pantry basic. But if you flip that can around, you'll find a chemical cocktail masquerading as a wholesome legume. Hanover includes both calcium chloride and disodium EDTA in every single can. As we established, calcium chloride is a chemical firming agent used to force the beans into an unnatural uniformity, while disodium EDTA is a heavy-duty synthetic preservative meant to stop color fading. The Independent Food Analysis Group has flagged Hanover precisely because these additives are completely unacceptable under strict clean eating guidelines, making these beans a persona non grata on specialized healthy grocery shelves. When you eat them, you can actually feel the artificial toughness of the skin, a rubbery resistance that doesn't belong in a properly slow-cooked kidney bean. To make matters worse, Hanover dumps extra sweeteners like sugar and dextrose into the mix, which serves no purpose other than to cover up the metallic, chemical aftertaste of the processing aids. With sodium clocking in at 340 milligrams per half cup, eating a realistic portion at dinner easily blows through a third of your daily recommended sodium budget before you even touch your main dish. Hanover charges you a standard price for a product heavily adulterated with industrial shortcuts. It's essentially a cosmetic science project in a can, sold under the guise of an agricultural staple. Moving along the aisle, we hit great value Walmart canned beans. Walmart dominates the American grocery market through sheer, aggressive affordability, and their great value line is a fixture in millions of budget-conscious households. But a rock-bottom price tag always comes with hidden costs. The fundamental problem with Walmart's private label is a total lack of transparency. Walmart doesn't grow or can these beans. They contract the production out to the lowest bidding third-party facilities. This means quality control fluctuates wildly. In fact, a recent consumer safety reporting investigation highlighted massive quality control crises for great value products across multiple states, where real consumers discovered physical contaminants like plastic fragments and metal shavings. If that doesn't make you pause, the chemical lining of the cans should. Organizations like the Environmental Working Group have historically flagged Walmart's canned goods for testing positive for bisphenol compounds. Even if the can claims to be BPA-free, the food industry frequently substitutes BPA with alternative compounds like BPS or polyester epoxies, whose long-term safety profiles are incredibly murky. When you eat great value pinto beans, you are often met with a chalky, inconsistent texture and a harsh, metallic zinc smell. They pack over 400 milligrams of sodium per serving in several varieties, alongside the standard calcium chloride. You might be saving 50 cents at the checkout counter, but you are gambling with industrial negligence and chemical shortcuts. Great value beans are less of a nutritional bargain and more of a supply chain roulette wheel. If you've already felt the urge to go check your own kitchen shelves, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because the deeper we dig into these corporate practices, the uglier it gets. Let's talk about ranch-style beans, a legendary fixture of Southern and Texan cooking owned by the massive food conglomerate Conagra Brands. The label conjures up images of authentic campfires and rugged outdoor cooking, but the modern reality is an ultra-processed nightmare. A standard can of ranch-style beans is absolutely loaded with sugar, modified cornstarch, onion powder, chili pepper, and the infamously vague natural flavors, under current regulations. That phrase can mask hundreds of secret chemical flavor enhancers. Dr. Robert Lustig, a prominent nutrition expert, has repeatedly warned against how modified starches and added sugars transform minimally processed whole foods into metabolic disruptors. The texture of these beans tells the whole story. They are swimming in a thick, gelatinous, overly sweet sludge that feels more like a heavy gravy than a natural bean sauce. Conagra packs 430 milligrams of sodium and about 3 grams of added sugar into every single half-cup serving. They took a regional culinary tradition, stripped out the actual craft, scaled it up for corporate profit, and replaced the slow-simmered flavor with hyper-palatable chemical engineering. It is an industrial convenience food wearing a cowboy hat. Next up is S&W kidney beans. S&W positions itself as a slightly more premium, sophisticated choice in major supermarkets like Safeway and Kroger, charging a premium over standard store brands. Yet their ingredient list exposes the exact same chemical laziness, featuring both calcium chloride and disodium EDTA. But S&W has an even darker shadow hanging over its production history. Faribault Foods, a massive manufacturing partner that handles packing for S&W and several organic private labels, had to issue a massive recall across multiple states affecting major distributors like Costco. The terrifying reason? Compromise conceals. In the canning world, a failed seal is an absolute nightmare scenario because it eliminates the sterile environment, allowing Clostridium botulinum to thrive. Botulism produces a lethal neurotoxin that can cause severe paralysis or death, completely invisible to the naked eye. While S&W claimed the manufacturing infrastructure was corrected, the fact remains that their supply chain has compromised consumer safety in the most severe way possible. Nutritionally, these beans pack up to 410 milligrams of sodium per serving, and even their reduced sodium lines still cling to chemical firming agents. S&W wants you to pay a premium for a product that carries both industrial chemical baggage and a historical red flag for deadly contamination. It's a luxury label slapped onto a baseline hazard. That brings us to Progresso red kidney beans, a household name owned by General Mills. Progresso has built a massive marketing apparatus around the idea of traditional quality, but their dark red kidney beans are actively banned from Whole Foods shelves because they contain disodium EDTA. General Mills uses this synthetic chelating agent strictly as a cosmetic additive to keep the beans looking uniformly pretty on grocery shelves for up to 5 years. It does absolutely nothing for your health, your digestion, or the flavor profile. It is entirely there for visual marketing. Real consumers frequently complain about a sticky, slimy film coating the beans when rinsed, along with a distinct chemical aroma. Progresso drops up to 420 milligrams of sodium into a single serving and adds processed sugar into their dark red kidney bean line. Independent food watchdogs have explicitly called out Progresso alongside other mainstream giants for maintaining an ingredient philosophy optimized for corporate logistics rather than human health. When your family's dinner staple is manufactured with the exact same cost-cutting, chemical-heavy mindset as boxed sugary breakfast cereals or frozen junk food snacks, the culinary integrity completely evaporates. Let's cross over into the world of heavily seasoned side dishes with Heinz baked beans, specifically the US formula. Heinz is a global icon, but if you look at the versions sold on American shelves versus the ones sold in the United Kingdom, you will see a jaw-dropping case of consumer betrayal. The American formula of Heinz baked beans contains a staggering 9 grams of added sugar per serving, which is roughly 40% more sugar than the British version of the exact same product. It also carries about 30% more sodium. Heinz deliberately engineered the American version to be a hyper-sweet, hyper-salty substance because they know high fructose corn syrup and sodium create an addictive flavor loop. At 550 milligrams of sodium per serving, eating a normal portion at a summer barbecue means you are consuming nearly half your daily sodium limit from a simple side dish. The sugar load is so intense that a half cup of these beans has the same sugar density as a chocolate chip cookie. It is a sugary dessert masquerading as a high-protein side dish, proving that major corporations view the American consumer as a target for cheap, addictive sweeteners, not to be outdone in the ultra-processed category. Campbell's pork and beans occupies a massive footprint in American supermarkets. The iconic red and white label screams Americana, but the second ingredient listed on the back of the can, right after water and beans, is high fructose corn syrup. This isn't traditional molasses or brown sugar. It's the heavily processed corn derivative that clinical nutrition studies have linked directly to fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome. Campbell's also uses modified food starch to unnaturally thicken the sauce, dragging the product deep into ultra-processed territory. If you open a can, you'll find the beans swimming in a watery, neon orange syrup, and if you look really closely, you might find a microscopic, pathetic piece of pork fat that exists solely so they can legally use the word pork on the front label. It provides zero nutritional value or real culinary depth. With 440 milligrams of sodium and up to 8 grams of sugar per serving, a single can deliver an absolute avalanche of processed sweeteners. Campbell's has the global infrastructure to provide clean, healthy food, but they choose to use the cheapest industrial inputs possible because it protects their profit margins. Entering our top 3 worst offenders, we find Goya beans. Goya is the largest Hispanic-owned food company in the United States, a true cultural titan present in almost every single American kitchen, but size does not equal safety. Regular Goya black beans pack an astonishing 410 milligrams of sodium per serving, making them a massive sodium vector. Their kidney beans are laced with the familiar duo of calcium chloride and disodium EDTA, landing them squarely on the Whole Foods banned ingredient list. But Goya's biggest scandal hit when the FDA initiated a major enforcement recall, pulling over 31,000 pounds of Goya red kidney beans from store shelves. The FDA classified it as a serious Class 2 recall after inspectors discovered severely swollen, leaking, and compromised cans in their production batches, the exact classic warning sign of bacterial gas production and botulism risk. Furthermore, Goya has been targeted by multiple consumer class action lawsuits challenging their deceptive labeling practices. including allegations of falsely marketing products as product of USA or claiming bases are made with olive oil when cheap soybean oil is the primary ingredient. Goya forces you to swallow excessive sodium, banned cosmetic chemicals, and a shocking lack of supply chain oversight. Sliding into the number 2 spot is Van Camp's pork and beans. Van Camp's has been a low-cost staple for generations, but the modern recipe reads like a chemical manual. High fructose corn syrup is splashed near the very top of the ingredient list, outranking salt, spices, and actual flavorings. Van Camp's adds modified cornstarch and Class 4 caramel color to synthetically darken the sauce. The industrial manufacturing process for Class 4 caramel color produces a chemical byproduct called 4-methylimidazole, which consumer advocacy groups and laboratory studies have flagged as a potential carcinogen. In fact, states like California require specific health warnings for high exposure to this compound, yet Van Camp's ships this stuff nationwide without a single warning. The texture is a cloying, syrupy mess, packing 430 milligrams of sodium and 8 grams of sugar per serving. A full can contains more sugar than a standard Snickers bar, with a token piece of pork fat floating inside for marketing compliance. You aren't eating a nutritious vegetable dish. You are eating an industrial corn syrup delivery system disguised as comfort food. And finally, taking the number 1 spot as the absolute worst canned bean brand in America is Bush's Best Beans. Bush's has built a massive multi-million-dollar empire entirely on the concept of home-style trust, using folksy commercials, family recipes, and a lovable golden retriever to make you feel like you're part of their family. That is precisely why they are the most dangerous brand on the shelf. The gap between their wholesome marketing image and their chemical-heavy reality is as wide as the Grand Canyon. Bush's combines every single terrible practice on this list into one single brand. Their regular kidney beans are packed with disodium EDTA, calcium chloride, processed sugar, and dextrose, earning them a permanent spot on clean food ban lists. If you buy their plain black beans thinking you're making a healthy choice for a burrito bowl, you are getting slammed with 450 milligrams of sodium per half cup, the absolute highest sodium level of any major brand on the market. A single can of Bush's plain black beans drops over 1,575 milligrams of sodium straight into your body, which is nearly 70% of your entire daily recommended limit. Turn to their flagship product, Bush's Original Baked Beans, and things get even more alarming. A staggering 12 grams of sugar per serving, which rockets up to 15 grams in their maple varieties. A single can of Bush's Baked Beans contains more sugar than a can of Coca-Cola and an entire day's worth of sodium combined. To top it all off, as of 2025, Bush's refuses to print any clear third-party BPA-free certifications on their standard cans, leaving consumers completely in the dark about what toxic bisphenol replacements are leaching into their food. Bush's counts on their folksy, nostalgic branding to keep you from turning the can around and reading the truth, making them the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing in the grocery aisle. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through the murky waters of corporate cost-cutting, hidden sugars, and chemical stabilizing agents. So let's finally talk about the brands that actually respect your health and your kitchen. Clean, honest canned beans absolutely exist right on the shelves of your local American supermarkets. These recommended options prove that you do not need industrial firming chemicals or artificial color preservers to make a convenient, delicious product. They rely on transparent sourcing, traditional preparation, and strict ingredient standards so you get nothing but real food. Starting our best list at number 4 is Westbury Natural. This brand delivers exactly what its name promises, making it a stellar entry-level alternative to conventional grocery store garbage. Available at regional supermarkets and major health food retailers, Westbury Natural products are fully USDA organic and non-GMO project verified. If you flip their cans around, you will find an incredibly refreshing, minimalist ingredient list: organic beans, water, and occasionally a small piece of kombu seaweed. No added salt, no calcium chloride, no disodium EDTA, and absolutely no high fructose corn syrup. By completely omitting added sodium, Westbury Natural drops the salt content down to a mere 0 to 15 milligrams of naturally occurring sodium per serving, a staggering contrast to the 450 milligrams packed into conventional brands. Independent agricultural data shows that choosing certified organic beans dramatically reduces your exposure to synthetic pesticide residues like glyphosate, which conventional growers often spray right before harvest. In terms of texture, because Westbury refuses to use artificial chemical hardening agents, their beans are noticeably softer and have a more delicate, natural mouthfeel. Some consumers accustomed to overly processed, salt-laden food initially describe them as plain, but that clean profile is exactly what you want. It means you are tasting a real agricultural product, not a food scientist's seasoning formula. At roughly $2 a can, it is an accessible, heart-healthy canvas for your own home-cooked meals. Hannaford stepping up to number 3, we have 365 by Whole Foods Market. This line offers an exceptional balance of clean quality and mass market availability, meaning you can find it easily across the country. The biggest superpower of the 365 organic bean line is that it must comply with Whole Foods' strict internal quality charter, which permanently bans over 150 common food preservatives, industrial colors, and artificial flavors from entering their stores. That means no disodium EDTA, no synthetic stabilizers, and absolutely no corn syrup can ever touch these products. Their unsalted line contains strictly organic beans and purified water, while their lightly salted varieties use clean sea salt rather than refined table salt loaded with industrial anti-caking agents. Because Whole Foods conducts regular third-party supplier audits, you get a completely transparent supply chain where agricultural purity is verified from the soil to the shelf. When you cook with these beans, they maintain a beautiful, cream-like texture without any of the sticky chemical slime found in cheaper competitors. At around $1.50 to $2 per can, they are barely more expensive than the chemical-packed national brands, completely debunking the myth that eating clean has to destroy your budget. Whole Foods Market, if you want to completely step away from the industrial metal container altogether, look no further than our number 2 spot, Jovial Organic Beans. Jovial takes packaging transparency to an absolute peak by packing their organic beans in heavy glass jars instead of metal cans. This single manufacturing choice completely eliminates the endless, stressful debate over chemical can linings. You don't have to worry about BPA, BPS, polyester epoxies, or undisclosed replacement plastics leaching endocrine-disrupting chemicals into your food during storage. Glass is totally inert, meaning it cannot alter the purity of the food inside. Grown on pristine organic family farms in Italy, Jovial's beans feature a beautifully pristine 3-ingredient list: organic beans, pure water, and a touch of natural sea salt. Furthermore, Jovial is one of the few brands that actively tests their batches for glyphosate residue and openly publishes the clean data. The difference in quality is something you can physically see right through the glass. The beans look perfectly plump, intact, and sit in a clear, clean liquid rather than a cloudy chemical sludge. When you eat them, the texture is incomparably rich, smooth, and buttery, mimicking a bean that you spent 12 hours soaking and simmering in an artisanal kitchen. The obvious downside here is the price and logistics. These glass jars retail for $4 to $6 each, making them a premium luxury choice, and they are heavier and more fragile to transport. But if your goal is to completely eradicate packaging chemicals while enjoying an absolute culinary masterpiece, Jovial is worth every single penny. Ubai Francie Show 1, taking our undisputed number 1's spot as the absolute gold standard of the bean world, is Eden Foods. Eden Foods has been setting an unassailable benchmark for clean food production for over 2 decades, and frankly, mass-market corporations aren't even playing the same sport. Eden was the pioneer that completely eliminated BPA from its can linings all the way back in 1999, decades before mainstream brands even admitted there was a safety issue. Today, their custom-engineered can linings are thoroughly verified to be entirely free of BPA, BPS, and phthalates, with independent consumer laboratory tests showing effectively zero chemical migration into the food. The ingredient list on an Eden Foods can is exactly what a traditional food product should look like: organic family-farmed beans, water, and a small trace of kombu seaweed. The kombu is a traditional mineral-rich sea vegetable that naturally tenderizes the bean skin during a slow cooking process, making them vastly easier to digest without requiring a single industrial processing chemical. Eden openly refuses to use hidden processing aids, meaning every single step of their overnight soaking and slow cooking method is fully disclosed. Because they do not use artificial hardeners like calcium chloride, you might occasionally find a few broken beans inside the can. Eden proudly accepts this minor cosmetic imperfection because they refuse to compromise internal purity for shelf aesthetics. The flavor profile is deeply savory, earthy, and complex, possessing a home-cooked density that blows every other brand out of the water. They are slightly pricier at around $3 to $4 a can, but you are paying for 26 years of unbroken corporate integrity, zero packaging toxins, and pristine American organic farming. Eden Foods isn't just a clean brand. It is the definitive yardstick by which all human food should be measured. Now that you have the full layout of the industry, you need a personal defense strategy for the supermarket aisle. When you are standing in Target, Kroger, or Publix, you shouldn't have to guess whether a product is safe. Here are 6 non-negotiable, concrete rules to follow every single time you buy a bean product. First, strictly look at the ingredient list and verify that it contains exactly 3 items or fewer: the name of the bean, water, and salt. If you see anything beyond that basic trio, put the can immediately back on the shelf. Second, treat the words disodium ETA and calcium chloride as absolute red flags that signal chemical shortcuts for shelf-life cosmetics and rushed industrial processing. Third, check the front panel for a certified USDA organic seal, because this single credential forces producers to comply with strict restrictions against chemical processing aids and harmful pre-harvest crop drying chemicals. Fourth, if you are looking to manage your sodium, choose exclusively from lines that explicitly state no salt added or unsalted, and do your own seasoning at home with high-quality sea salt. Fifth, if you are purchasing baked beans or seasoned varieties, check the nutrition panel and make sure the sugar content does not exceed 3 grams per serving. Anything higher means you are purchasing a dessert disguised as a savory side dish. Sixth, whenever possible, choose glass jars over metal cans to completely eliminate the lingering question of chemical migration from plasticizers, polyester epoxies, and hidden can linings into your food. Take a quick mental snapshot of these rules before your next trip to H-E-B, Costco, or Safeway, and you will never get played by a food chemist again. The fundamental takeaway here is simple. The modern food industry is entirely engineered around profit margins, logistics, and visual deception rather than your family's health. Major corporations use cheap, addictive chemical additives like high-fructose corn syrup and excessive sodium to create highly addictive flavor profiles while masking low-quality, rushed farming practices. The folksy marketing, the golden retrievers, and the heritage logos are carefully crafted illusions designed to stop you from doing the one thing that protects you: turning the package around. By shifting your mindset from trusting a brand's narrative to strictly auditing their ingredient lists, you completely strip away their marketing power and regain complete control over what enters your body. Thank you so much for investing your time to dig up the truth with me today. If this investigation completely changed how you view the everyday items sitting in your kitchen pantry, please hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and share this video immediately with a friend or family member who regularly opens a can of beans without checking the back label first. I want to hear directly from you, so drop a comment below right now and let me know which of these corporate bean brands is sitting on your household shelf this very second. If you want to keep pulling back the curtain on the deceptive items lurking in your supermarket